Semi-automatic shotguns. You really can't have a conversation about semi-automatic shotguns without including arguably the most battle-tested and the most respected semi-automatic 12-gauge shotgun of the modern era. And that particular shotgun is the Benelli M4. And since I've been blessed to get a Benelli M4 on the channel for review, I'm going to take a look at this particular shotgun, what it brings to the table, and do a quick side-by-side comparison with one of the other widely respected and very popular semi-automatic shotguns, the Beretta 1301 Tactical. So without further ado, let's get into this thing. What's going on, everybody? It's your big homie, the armchair operator, and welcome to today's video. Now, if you're new to my channel, thank you so much for stopping by. If you enjoy the content, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. Become a part of the family. We would love to have you. And if you're coming back to the channel, thank you so much for coming back. I definitely appreciate it, and I hope that you also enjoy today's content. Now, as I said in the intro, today we're going to take a look at probably one of the most widely respected semi-automatic 12 gauges in the game today, the Benelli M4. And it has built quite the reputation for itself over the last 20-25 years or so that it has been in existence, for very good reason. But before we get into that, I just want to give a huge shout out to the supporters of the channel, the Bunker Gun Shop. They were the ones who actually provided the Benelli M4 for this review, this beautiful firearm right here. And without them, this review would not be possible. So a big thank you to them. Go on over to the interwebs and do a little search, you know what I mean, do a little magical search there in one of them search engines and check them out. You know what I mean? They have a lot of good stuff. 2 locations serving the greater Philadelphia area. Just go over there and check them out. You know, you might find some similar things to what we're talking about today. Maybe even the exact one. But like I said, go on over there and check them out. But anyway, back to the subject matter at hand. The Benelli M4. Now, there's been a lot of different reviews of this particular shotgun over the years. Let me just give you all that good panel view of it real quick. Like I said, there's been a lot of different reviews of this particular shotgun over the years. So for many of you, this is essentially a rehash of probably a lot of stuff that you already know. But essentially what I'm going to attempt to do here is I'm going to attempt to maybe introduce a few things that most people may not be familiar with as far as this particular shotgun goes, and also compared to one of the other more popular semi-automatic 12 gauges in the game by Beretta 1301. I've already did a review on that particular shotgun. I'll leave it in the pinned comment in case y'all want to go back and watch it. It's maybe about a little over a year and a half ago now. It was one of my older videos. But today we want to talk about this, and really, if you didn't know, these particular shotguns are kind of cousins because Benelli itself is a subsidiary of Beretta. So these particular guns, they're similar in some respects and different in other respects. So that's why I kind of call them a cousins, and essentially because, like I said, this Benelli is owned by Beretta. So there you go. But anyway, let's take a look at the features of this particular 12 gauge. And where do I always like to stop? I like to start at the top, which are the sights. Now, of course, you got your hooded front sight here, and this is all metal, by the way. Of course, this is a military grade shotgun, so this thing is kind of overbuilt, as it should be, because it's a tool meant for a specific purpose. Anyway, you got the little ears here protecting the front sight. This particular shotgun has the ghost ring sights, and these are tritium filled in the rear and in the front. And then you have the aperture sight in the back here, and of course this sight is adjustable. See, there you go, adjustable right there. Now, one of the there's two things that sets this apart as far as the sights go with the standard Beretta 1301 Tactical. They look virtually identical, right? Just by looking at them. And here's the Beretta 1301 Tactical here. You see how they look virtually identical? But there's two key differences. The first thing is the protectors, the ears, the hood, whatever you want to call this thing, for the rear sight on the Benelli, this is aluminum. This is solid metal right here. Whereas on the Beretta 1301, this is polymer, okay? And you can see this has a shorter rail than the Benelli, okay? Now, as far as the front sight is basically the same. This is a tritium filled dot, and this iteration of the Beretta 1301, this is the Mod 1 version of it, just in case you wanted to know. This also is a tritium filled front sight, which is kind of interesting to me because I've had this shotgun for over 2 years and I did not know that this was a tritium front sight. How about that? You know, so you learn something new every day, right? All right. So let's move on from there. Of course, you got this nice finish here. I'm not exactly sure. This looks like a marine coat finish, but don't quote me on that. It does look and feel like a marine coat finish. It has a nice smooth texture to it. A marine coat finish, for those who don't know, is the type of finish that you use for harsher environments, like, you know, you have a high salt content, things like that. Metal components and other types of finishes don't hold up very well in those environments, so it leads to a lot of rust and a lot of corrosion over time. The marine coats is just a bit more of a durable finish that is able to withstand those harsher conditions. So this is what this looks like to me. I really like the finish, and when I do get a Benelli M4 at some point, and I will be getting a Benelli M4 at some point in the, I don't want to say the near future, but in the future for sure, this is the type of finish that I want from my Benelli M4. Now, moving on from there, of course, you got your Picatinny rail. Now, this firearm was actually, this is a used firearm. This is not what a typical Benelli M4, even a base model, looks like out of the box. I mean, for the most part it is, but if you notice this particular edition right here, this was added later, I guess, by the previous owner. Typically, all right, so this is the bolt catch right here. Oh, first of all, let's verify clear. The firearm is clear. You see, chamber is clear, and there are no shells in the tube, and we're filming in a safe, controlled environment. I know I waited a little over 6 minutes to get to doing the clear check. My apologies for that. I'm just running off at the mouth. But anyway, back to this. So typically what you'll see is just a standard button bolt release here. And, you know, once the bolt is locked to the rear, well, I already verified clear. Let's do that. Once the bolt is locked to the rear, you would just hit the button to send the bolt home. Well, whoever had this gun before added this little, I guess, textured metal piece right here to kind of aid in dropping the bolt just a little bit faster. A lot of Benelli M4 owners typically do that. Now, the newer ones do have upgraded bolt releases, so I think that's really good. Now, the Beretta 1301 Tactical has a larger button. That was one thing the Beretta 1301, one of the things I should say that it has over its Benelli cousins. You just have that much larger button right there. Hold on. Right? Now, this is also clear, by the way, and there are no shells in the firearm. But it's a lot easier just to hit that and send the bolt home versus just a small button. So as you can see, this particular owner who had this firearm previously before trading it in added this to kind of you know what I mean, to make this a little bit easier. All right, now, okay, now you have the charging handle. I believe this charging handle is stock, but I have seen some Benelli M4s that had smaller charging handles. But one thing about the action of this thing, so let me just show you this. This action is so damn smooth, like it don't make no sense. It actually feels like it's riding on ball bearings. And that's another difference between this and the Beretta 1301 over here. Now, that's not to say that this particular firearm is gritty or anything like that. It's smooth and it feels good, but it is not as smooth as the action on the Benelli. This is literally like grease shit on ice. This is almost like 2011 style smooth. And that's one of the key differences between this and this. They both work fine. They both run like tanks and they both are built like tanks, okay? So now we're moving on from there. This here, this particular button here is, I don't know what you call this, to be perfectly honest, but I do know it has to do with, it locks the bolt to the rear. So if I push that, I can lock the bolt to the rear. So that's really good. And if I want to send the bolt home, I can send the bolt home like that. So I think that's really cool. All right. All right, so we have that. And of course you have your safety, which is actually right here, like your basic cross bolt style safety. I don't know if you can see the hole. Let me take this sidecar off real quick. This is my S-Tac sidecar. By the way, I keep these and I run them on my shotguns. But anyway, that's a little safety right there. Little crossbow style. Red is, you know what red means. When you don't see red, the trigger is locked and it's safe. Okay. Let's see. Speaking of which, this Velcro backer was also something that was added by the previous owner as well. So it was just natural for me to put my sidecar on there while I'm doing my testing. And just a quick sidebar when it comes to shotguns, I highly recommend adding a sidecar to your shotguns. 10 out of 10 recommend. I like the S-Tac sidecars because with the Velcro, you can just affix it to the receiver, your firearm. You don't have to do any drilling or anything like that, adding screws, which could negatively affect the performance of your firearm. You know what I mean? You don't really want to be drilling stuff into the receiver of your gun. But these are really cool, and these elastic bands are so tight. Like, I have run the hell out of my Beretta 1301 and my other shotguns with these, and I've never had a shell fall out of one of these side saddles. So definitely 10 out of 10 recommend the S-Tac side saddles. Anyway, moving on from there, we got the standard handguard here. Now, out of the box, the Benelli M4s are 5 in the tube, 1 in the pipe. So basically like a 5+1. This particular model does have a magazine extension, but I can only get about 6 shells in the tube. And some of the magazine extensions that I've seen are like a +2. I don't know if this is just a +1 or what the story is, but I can only really get 6 in the tube of this. So I'm just going to call this particular model a 6+1. Now, the Beretta 1301 Tactical here, usually, well, back in the day, they were like the same, right? When they were imported from Italy, they were like a 5+1. And then they came out like Mesa Tactical, for example, came out with accessory kits where you can add a +2 extension, which is essentially what you see right here. This is the +2 extension. And of course, this is the Mesa Tactical buttstock and pistol grip. So this particular one is 7+1. Okay, and this particular one is, well, it's strictly speaking a 7+1 if you have a +2 mag extension, but I can only get 6 shells in the tube of this thing. But anyway, moving on from there, let's talk about the weight. So one of the biggest differences between the Benelli M4 and the Beretta 1301 is the weight. The weight of this particular firearm is noticeably heavier than that of the Beretta 1301, and it definitely plays a big part in how each one of these feels when you shoot them. And I'll talk more about that when we get to the shooting, the range portion of the video. But just know that this particular gun is a bit on the, it's not a heavy firearm. It's not heavy for a shotgun, but I would say I noticed the weight difference because I'm used to handling the Beretta 1301 over here versus the Benelli M4. That being said, spoiler alert, this is a pretty soft shooting shotgun in my opinion, but we'll get to that more so down the road when we get to the range review. All in all, we have a nice rubberized grip here. It's pretty wide, it's nice, and you know what I mean, it's grippy. You won't have to worry about your hands slipping or anything like that if it gets sweaty, if it gets wet, or whatever the case may be. And then we have the standard style butt stock here. I guess you could call it like a M4 style or whatever. But one downside about this particular stock is that the length of pull is kind of long. So for me, because I'm a bigger guy, I'm like 6'3", I have longer arms. So getting on this, the length of pull is not bad to me. However, if you're a smaller stature person and you have shorter arms, you might find the length of pull of this particular shotgun a bit too long. But the good news is that they do have replacement grips and adjustable stocks for the Benelli M4. And that's another thing. There's a hell of an aftermarket for the Benelli shotgun. So if you do decide to get into the Benelli M4 platform, there is a wide variety of aftermarket accessories that you can buy to really kit out your Benelli M4. So that's a good thing about it. But I'm gonna tell you right now, they are not cheap at all. So just be aware of that. This is kind of like buying a Mercedes-Benz in the semi-automatic shotgun world. I mean, these things typically retail for about 1,800 bucks brand new, and that's bare bones. That's not, you know, adjustable stocks. That's not M-lock handguards or any of those sorts of things. So just be aware of that. However, I will say that though this shotgun is expensive, it performs, and it performs beautifully. So with that being said, let's talk more about the performance of this gun. Let's head on over to the range. Welcome to the range portion of the review, and I have both shotguns here on the table. So this part of the video, I'm going to talk a little bit more about the features of the Benelli M4, but we're going to do a quick comparison with my Beretta 1301 Tactical. So as you can see, there's both of them in all their glory on the bench rest, and you can see real quick the length of pull difference between the two. But anyway, y'all didn't come to see that. Y'all came to see how to go shoot. All right, so we're running four things. We got some SM double art buck 12 gauge. We got some Remington rifle slugs. These are the lower power law enforcement loads. And we got the big boys, the Winchester Super X 1600 feet per second. So I got the target up there at 10 yards. We're gonna load up 7 in the Benelli, gonna run that, and then we're gonna switch on over to the Beretta and gonna run that. All right, so let's get started. So right now, I just wanna show you the recoil comparison between the two. That's why I'm not really showing the target right now. All right, I got my shells on the table. Let's load up this Benelli and put some heat down range. Gonna port load it. Basically, I'm doing 1 shell of double art buck, and the other 5 are going to be the Remington slugs. All right. Okay, that's the Benelli. Let's move on over to the Beretta. You saw the difference between full power double art buck and low recoil slugs. So for all my recoil sensitive folks out there, you might want to consider getting the lower power loads. All right, it's Beretta time. Uh-oh. Oh, we got a malfunction, baby. Oh, no. Wow, we got 3 malfunctions with the low recoil loads on the Beretta. I gotta say, I've had this shotgun for a while, and admittedly, I haven't cleaned it in a while, but even so, it's rare that I get malfunctions with that 1301. But whatever, let's check the target. All right, so this is basically what we're working with. But this is what I mean. This is why I always say you're going to be hard pressed to find a small arm that could provide a more devastating result at 25 yards and in than a shotgun. But also, as you saw with the Beretta 1301, that's one of the most reliable semi-automatic shotguns in the game, and it choked. And that's the thing about semi-autos. A lot of people don't trust semi-autos for that reason. And I would say that these two on the table are the most reliable ones that you could, some of the most reliable ones that you could find. But even so, with those light loads, you might run into some problems. But anyway, let's put a new target up there and let's load up again. I got some more of the SMB, but this time we're gonna run the hot-ish, that Winchester Super X. I'll be right back. All right, I got my first target loaded up. Let's get this out to 10 yards again. Now, if this was a regular versus video, I would already say that the reliability portion would definitely go to the Benelli M4 over the 1301, at least for right now. But I'm not done. We're going to run some more again. I don't think the Benelli is going to choke. I don't think the Beretta is going to choke again because I'm not running any more lower power loads. But let's just see. Okay. First up, the Benelli. We're going to do the first shot of double aught buck, and the rest are going to be rifle slugs. Oh Lord, my poor shoulder. What am I talking about, Lord, my poor shoulder? I'm the recoil master. I ain't afraid of no damn Magnum loads. No 1600 feet per second. Let me show you how I do. Hot damn. Now we're talking. Let's move on over to the Beretta. Outstanding. Let's check that target. And we already know I done wore his ass out, but let me just show you real quick. See? There you go. You still need to aim with a shotgun, but when you hit what you aiming at, whoo, God help that soul. Trust me. All right, so you see the recoil difference. The Beretta 1301 is noticeably lighter than the Benelli M4, so it's going to change their recoil impulse. As far as the M4 goes, I can feel the cycling of the action a bit more than when I'm running the 1301. If I had to pick one, which one is more comfortable, it's kind of hard to say, to be perfectly honest. It's going to be one of those things where, like I always tell people, try before you buy. If you could find a range that has both of these shotguns available for rent, definitely recommend you trying it out and seeing for yourself. It's hard for me to pick. Like, I like the additional weight of the Benelli M4 a little bit over the Beretta 1301, but the Beretta 1301 doesn't punch as hard in that recoil, if that makes any sense. You know what I mean? Physics being what it is, you're going to feel that energy a bit more when you have more mass hitting you. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to get into a whole physics discussion, but you get the idea. All right, so one thing I didn't mention is that the Benelli M4 has a choke. This barrel has a choke on it. Right now it's set to cylinder bore. So this is the reason why we can run slugs through it. That's the thing about shotguns. In case, if you did not know, if you're going to run slugs, first of all, make sure that your shotgun is able to run slugs, okay? If they are, and you and your shotgun barrel is able to accept the choke, make sure you put it on cylinder bore. You don't want to be constraining or putting a tighter choke and running slugs through your shotgun. You'll have a bad day if you do that. Also, if you have a shotgun that has a choked barrel, don't run it without the choke being installed. Doing so will screw up the threads, and once again, you'll have a bad day. But anyway, enough talking. We're gonna put the target up, another target up, and we're just gonna run out of what I have here on the table, okay? So let's reset and let's go again. All right, y'all, I got the last few shells out here on the table. So for the Benelli, we're gonna do 4 of the S&B double art buck and 2 of the Winchester rifle slugs. And we're going to do 3 rifle slugs for the Beretta 1301 and 4 of the double art buck. First up is the visitor to the group, the Benelli M4. Then we're going to switch on over to the Beretta. Basically how we've been doing. All right, you know what? Let's do the slugs first. Let's do the, no. Yeah, that's what we're going to do. We're going to do a slug. Then we're going to do the buckshot. So basically I'm loading this thing up so we can shoot the slugs first and then the buckshot last. All right. Man, this is a smooth shooting shotgun, I'm gonna tell you. Time for the 1301. Whew. Very nice. Let's check the target. Like I said before, absolute devastation. This speaks for itself. So a couple takeaways. Like I said, if I had to pick one or the other, like, they both have their strengths and they both have their weaknesses. Like I said, the Benelli M4 is a bit on the heavier side. So while it'll absorb some of that recoil, you'll feel it a bit more as it hits your shoulder, if that makes any sense. Put it like this. It shoots a little bit flatter than the Beretta 1301. Hopefully I'm being a little clear on that. But the Beretta 1301 Tactical is a phenomenal shotgun. Yes, it did hiccup on those lower power loads. That's a hard task for any semi-automatic shotgun to pass. And most of the time, honestly, my Beretta 1301 shows up. It's just this particular time, it didn't in that instance. But anyway, that's going to complete the range portion of this review. We're going to head on back to the review space and close things out. All right, welcome back to the review space. So, to sum things up, the Benelli M4 is a hell of a shotgun. It's a bit of a pricey shotgun. It's not, I would say, it's not a perfect shotgun, but it's a hell of a shotgun. It's fun to shoot. The additional heft of the gun does make it recoil a little bit less, but trust and believe, when you're running those 1600 feet per second Winchester Super X loads through this thing, you're going to feel it pretty quickly. Law enforcement loads, It's like butter. It is absolutely a joy to shoot. And the great thing about this particular shotgun is that you can run quote unquote low brass or lower power 12 gauge, and this thing will run it. Just like the Beretta 1301, this thing will run it. And you can't really say that with a lot of semi-automatic shotguns. So that just speaks to the reliability of this particular gun. I mean, hell, this thing is awesome. I 10 out of 10 would recommend, if you could stand the cost of entry to get into this thing. Me personally, when I actually do get a Benelli M4 for my personal collection, I plan to get one with the adjustable stock. Like I said, I can run this shotgun as it stands all day long with no problem, but I like to be able to configure my length of pull, especially if I ever put it in a home defense role. You know, it already has an 18.5-inch barrel, so if I could shorten up the length of pull, if I got to maneuver around tighter spaces and so on and so forth, it's better for me, in my opinion. But I could rock this all day long and, you know, do what I need to do if I had to. But with that being said, I'm going to end the video there. What do y'all think about the Benelli M4? Let me know down in the comment section, y'all. Let's get this discussion popping. Now, I know there are a lot of clones out there, like the Mac 1014, the Panzer Arms, you know, and some others. And I do plan on getting, I actually want either a Panzer M4 or a Mac 1014 for the collection. I would love to do a side-by-side comparison between that and the Benelli M4 here. So hopefully I'll be able to bring that to the channel at some point in the future. But for right now, what you see is what you get. So I hope you enjoyed it. But anyway, y'all, I'm going to end it there. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. This is your big homie, the Armchair Operator, and I'm signing out, y'all. Peace.